Today I got time, cuz. Remember that guy said that? I think he's like a meme or something, but today I got time, okay? I didn't put all this stuff up together, okay? All of it together to talk about my finishing reading Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan, which of course is book number 10 in the epic fantasy, high fantasy Wheel of Time series. And the reason I'm giving y'all so much face and enthusiasm and emphasis on that is because this is often known as the most controversial. I will leave that in relative terms, but it's a book, okay? It's a book to get through in this series. But it's often the book that's characterized as the slog, the depthness of the slog, consisting of books 8 through 10. It's often also characterized as a very grudging, begrudging and grudging and belaboring and bemoaning and laborious read. All those things, it's up to the reader to sort of express those notions. However, for me personally, I enjoyed the book. Okay, I actually enjoyed the book. Um, so I'm gonna say that several different things sort of transpired to make me enjoy this book. But the number one thing I want to make sure that I point out first is how I approach the book, given all of those things that I just spoke of that's often characterized to describe this book. Given that I started the book series early and some information came through about the 10th book, not so much spoilerific, I wanted to make sure that when I got to this book that I was going to take my time to read it. And what I did, to cover the furthermore on that is I ended up doing 50 pages of that in conjunction with another book. So it was like 50 pages of Wheel of Time and another book a day made me a happy man. Although after 12 o'clock they say I'm something different. But when I'm actually at work. But nevertheless, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure that I did to approach this book. Another thing that I want to make sure that I did, which is probably the most key thing that I did, was this was really interesting, I guess. Given that I've had my arguments with the books prior to reading Crossroads, I had my most certainly my complaints, my hopes and desires and wishes that I wish that Jordan would have did with some of the characters. I wanted to make sure that when I got to this book, the quote unquote scandalous and controversial book, the epitome of the slog, the one that a lot of people generally quit the series at, I think, I wanted to make sure that I approached this from a place of pure cleansing, purifying catharsis, release of all of my expectations and desires and anticipations for the series, from the direction all the way to the characters' behaviors and motivations and etc. etc. I did not go into Crossroads of Twilight with any of those things. I wanted to make sure that I went into the book just appreciating the work for what it was. I recognized that I was on book 10. I recognized that, hell, I'd already bought all the damn books, okay? So they ain't going nowhere. They got to get read. So I recognized that I just needed to just appreciate Jordan's work for what it was. Yes, Elaine gets on my nerves sometimes, and I do wish that certain things she would have did, I feel like would have brought more resonance with me and concerns to her. Yes, parents' storyline is a drag to get through, which an interesting thing happened here in reading this. And yes, Nynaeve is my girl, and I wish that she could just take over the whole damn series. Yes, I do. Okay, I do. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. But my point is that I removed myself from those things and said I'm just gonna read it as it is, because that's really all that I can do. And in essence, I enjoyed the book for that, approaching it from that purpose. It did something in me where I think I grew as a reader in regards to this series. It made me, taking that approach, that it is what it is, essentially, it made me, after I finished the book, I took this much more objective um, field of thinking, where I feel like if I went back to the previous book and corrected some of my quote unquote mistakes or misinterpretations, that I'm better suited to go back and read the series again, given that it's best to just leave my personal stuff aside and take the series as it is. So that was how I approached this book. Nevertheless, one of the interesting things that I picked up from reading Crossroads of Twilight was that the tonality of it was completely different from the prior books, the books before. Crossroads of Twilight, it really had this somber, melancholy, almost a touch sadness tone to it. And I say that because usually when I read a Jordan book, I'm always constantly laughing all the freaking time. Like I'd be just cracking up laughing all the time. One of my favorite scenes is actually in, I think, The Fires of Heaven, when Tom was driving a wagon with Elaine and Nynaeve in the back, and Nynaeve was mocking Elaine with that "Yes, my lady, Elaine, yes, my lady," because they were disguising themselves, and she was like a handmaid or some stuff. I don't know. It's just a long time ago. But the point is that those who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. A lot of people hate Nynaeve because of this scene, but I was laughing. I was like, "That's my girl Nynaeve right there. She's so shady." But my point is that, like I said, I'm always reading these books and I'm just cracking up laughing. I love Jordan's humor. He has a wide range of humor, from the dark to the light to the satire to the slapstick, I guess you can say. There's always moments within these books that just have me cracking up laughing. You know, he can say things so subtly that it goes over your head, and sometimes you have to read it back and it'll land, and next thing you know, you're laughing. Wonderful stuff. Very good. But I noticed in Crossroads of Twilight that wasn't really the case. Like I said, it had a very dark and somber and melancholy tone to it, for no specific reason other than I think that with this book, a lot of the focus was, as a lot of people complain, is it's a bottleneck experience. You know, the good stuff is in the back. We got to shoot our way through each of these characters and their stories before everything opens up. So it really read like a bottleneck experience. And I picked up that pattern very early on when he would focus on one of the primary characters, such as Matt, for probably about a chapter or two, and then another chapter or one or two would be focused on what is the opposition that's approaching Matt. Perrin's storyline to try to find his wife Fail. Perrin begrudging and bemoaning within his camp. Uh, these mathematics with the maps and the strategy to release her from the camp, and then the chapter switched to Fail's role within the camp, which is interesting because Fail was a character that I absolutely could not abhor. Okay, I couldn't stand Fail. She got on my nerves, child. She got on my nerves, but I actually liked her in this book. And the catch is that I like her when she's not with Perrin. I realize that that's the catch. That's why I like her. And piggybacking off Perrin's storyline in Crossroads of Twilight, I want to make sure that I read on his storyline, because in Winter's Heart, the previous book, I actually read a page or two of his story thread and I was done. Wasn't interested at all. But like I said, continuing forward, there's Elaine trying to make sure that she grasps the throne of Andor, and there's chapters focused on that. Elaine works my nerves too in her little social circles. But then the preceding chapters are what is going to be the oppositional forces coming up against her. So it goes through each of the characters, except for maybe Nynaeve and Rand, who, they tied up the events in the previous book, but you see them later on in this book. And that's just how it is. To me, Crossroads of Twilight was it was an experience that's, like I said, a bottleneck experience that Jordan took the time to recalibrate all the stakes, recalibrate the story threads, reestablish who were the principal characters and what were their motivations, prepping for all the events that was going to take place in the preceding books and down the line. And I gotta say that once I really just took myself into that and focused and just read them, just took them all as they were. That's the key for me. Just take the sugar honey iced tea for what it is, knowing that I'm going to finish this series and I've already made it this far and there's nothing else I really can complain about. It became a wonderful experience. I just had to take my time, read them, and understand what was going on. And it made me like the characters a lot more. I finally was like, okay, Perrin. When later on when Perrin came back, with his story thread picked up later on in the book, that's when I was like, okay, you're getting warmer with me. I have troubles with Elaine. When Elaine's chapters start to slowly come to a boil and start to die down, and when I seen what it was that she was actually up against in terms of assassins and stuff, I said, okay, I'm in the boat with you, Elaine. Matt's storyline has always been my favorite, besides Nynaeve. But if there's not a need, there's Matt. Matt's always been good. He's always had good stuff to me. I like every time Matt's stuff is always good because he's so funny. But I'm learning something here that I really do like. Daughters of the Nine Moon Twan. She is hilarious. She was the only one that made me laugh within this book. Her scenes, Daughter of the Nine Moon scenes, were what made me laugh. Um, and with Egwene, I was finally happy to pick up where she left off in Path of Daggers, although she had a moment in Winter's Heart, but it's specific to Path of Daggers, where she's deciding to take on the White Tower. Very interesting stuff with Egwene. Some reason, although I had troubles with her early in the series, I feel like that I underrated her in a sense. So it's really interesting there. I really want to know what she's gonna do, especially at the end of this book. Okay, who did that? I want to know who did that to Egwene. But my point is that taking my time and reading the chapters and focusing, just blinders on. This is what Jordan is serving. I'm going with y'all on this. It really pulled me back into the story and made me enthusiastic and excited for what's more to come. I actually feel like that, like I said, Crossroads of Twilight was just a moment of growth for me in regards to the series. And I feel like that I can be a lot more objective in reading this series. And I don't discount any of my reader response thoughts and complaints from previous, but I feel like the Crossroads of Twilight, how I approached it, how I read it, it made me, like I said, much more objective. Should I go back and pick up the books and read them all over again, to take my time and just take them as they are, especially Lord of Chaos. I still hold a little bit of a guilt for how I read the first quarter of Lord of Chaos, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I switched to audio form, as well as Winter's Heart when I skipped some chapters around Elaine and parents. So yeah, I feel like I can go back and give them justice now. So there, that's one thing. The tone of the series changed. I feel like with Crossroads of Twilight, it's a lot more serious. I don't want to make any assumptions when it comes to that tone, that sad tone that I picked up from the book, but they may or may not have something to do with the author at that particular time. That's a big assumption. I really don't want to get into that, but to me, it really did have a dark cloud over it. Reading Crossroads of Twilight, it just did. It really did. There was no more. I'll box your ears, Randall Thor. I miss when I need to be like that. I'll box your ears. I'll take a switch to your ass, Randall Thor or Birch or whatever. That's another thing I used to laugh about when men would threaten to whoop him. People can't stand that, and I get it. I understand. I really understand. Yeah, you're right. It's a little disturbing, but men is funny. Men is funny, okay? But yeah, for me personally, I'm starting to really just take the characters as they are. I don't feel the need to complain or anything. But I think one of the things I walked away from this book really feeling the overall resonance of the experience from, is the analogy of the title itself, Crossroads of Twilight. And it took me to the end of the book to get it. This is a book where our supposing or our designated good guys have to cross over to work with the bad guys to get the things that they want to achieve done. Perrin has to recruit some of the Sanchin to help him free his wife. Now, who wants to mess with their ass? Rand has to go about working with the Sanchin to get where he needs to get. But on top of that, Rand has a lot of people smiling in his face who really want to kill him. So, Twilight, good. There's a little light here. There's a little dark here. There's a little Twilight here. But see, there's another thing that I find interesting about that as it relates to the title of the book, The Crossroads of Twilight. When it comes to Matt is sort of seen like this womanizer of sorts, the trickster womanizer, but on the flip side, he's being troubled by the fact that he keeps getting women killed in a lot of cases. Which, speaking of that, one of the queen of sorts, I'm not gonna say the name. When I found out what happened to her, I was like, oh my God, they are serious, dude. I was upset about that, even though she kind of got on my nerves, but she was riding with Matt these past books, so, and on him. But I was sad about that. But there's a scene in this book that really just kind of made me go, wow, yep, it's the darkness that's creeping in. And then that was with Perrin. Perrin was always known as like soft spoken and like a big what's those Care Bears. and he has to resort to torture to try to get answers for his wife's presence. And all this time, with these characters trying to slip in and out of the dark and trying to be discerning of what the direction should be, the entire time, the events that Rand took over in the previous book has been cleansed. So it's really interesting that Twilight, the light of the dark. And then, of course, there's the whole element of the White Tower and then the emergence of the Black Tower. You know, just a lot of the dynamics, Crossroads of Twilight. Which direction are y'all gonna go in? You know, you're the good guys, but y'all are stepping forward into the darkness. Which direction are you gonna go? You're at a crossroads. Here. Make your decision here. You wanna work with a shaman, but you're an Aes Sedai from the White Tower. You sure you want to do that? All these things are coming up. But the purpose, of course, is to get as many forces and factions together or whatnot to combat the Dark Lord, which is vastly approaching when we have about 4 books left. So alliances have to be made, and of course betrayals will come along the way. So when I got to the end of the book and that analogy of Crossroads of Twilight hit me, I was like, oh, I see now. I see what we're working with now. So one of my things that I love most about these books is the intrigue, who can be trusted and who can't. So I'm enthusiastic about that. I still want to know who shot Egwene at the end of this book. That's what I want to know. And I want to know who is posing as the daughter of the Nine Moons. Stay tuned for book 11. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to leave this video without saying some of the things that, yeah, I mean, I'm removed of the complaints, but there's some things that I did get tired of. You know, one of the things is really it just kind of just settles on the host of characters. I've made it to this point in the series where I'm not going to understand who all these Aes Sedai are. They can have Jordan can lay out their names. He can describe their hairstyles as many times as he wants. He can do their clothes. He can tell us which color they're designated to. I still won't understand. It still won't compute. I don't know who a Barrelane is. Barrelane comes up and I got to go, okay, now who is she again? Or this person come up, I still got to look it up. It still does not register to me. It just don't. They all look in my head, envisioning them. They all look the same to me, basically. But I do enjoy the dialogue, because the dialogue is something that you have to sift through to see what they're really trying to say. They be throwing a lot of shade. I love that part. Same with the Windfinder people. Just can't distinguish them at all. They just all kind of run together. It really is a matter of, here's the principal characters that I'm very much familiar with, and their 4 or 5 core, you know, compatriots surrounding them that, you know, once I get them into the fold of the process of envisioning the scene, it works together. These other people, no clue. So that's kind of all that I wanted to leave talking about Crossroads of Twilight with. I mean, there's a lot more. I wish that I could get into the individual storylines and what I'm looking forward to. Specifically, one, Elaine taking on these houses where they sent their children, basically their youngest children, to be their representative forces. So I feel like there's some grooming that's going to take place in that area. Like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to see what Egwene goes through. She's now in the tower, and I knew she was going to do some stuff like this. But my point is, she better be on point. I'm so ready for the Shido to end. I'm sick of Savannah. She was very minimum in this book, but I'm ready for her to end. I'm ready for Elada to get her coming. And that's kind of it. Yeah, I'm enjoying the Matt and Twan, the dynamic there. Anyway, that is it. I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to go ahead and pick up Knife of Dreams. I really want to, but I think I'm gonna wait a week. I don't know why. It don't make no sense to do so, but whenever I get to it. So anyway, Crossroads of Twilight. I'm still enthusiastic about reading the series. I don't have any complaints for real. Yes, I can, but I feel like it's a waste of, there's no point to it. I didn't read all the way up to this point. There's nothing else that it really is a case of it is what it is, like it or not, just basically. But personally, I enjoyed it. and it's healthy for me because I always want to read a high fantasy series, and for whatever reason why I picked this series, I don't know, but I feel like I'm a lot stronger as a reader because of it. And that's the key. So bye.